The Nintendo Switch 2 is here, and after using it for almost every waking minute for the last week, I think I'm finally ready to talk about my thoughts and feelings about the new device. This is my Switch 2 review. Now let's check off the basics first. The Switch 2 cost £395.99 in the UK and $449.99 in the US, which is just above the price of the OG non-OLED Steam Deck, and is priced below current gen consoles, the Xbox Series X and PS5, but not by much. Straight off the bat, Nintendo hasn't reinvented the wheel here, and it's easy to see why, considering the original Switch is one of the best-selling consoles of all time, with Nintendo instead sticking with a similar-ish design with the focus of improving, refining and updating everything people loved about the original. Gone is the 6.2-inch 720p 60Hz display, replaced by a gorgeous and modern 7.9-inch 1080p 120Hz LCD display, which also supports HDR. There's also a new dock too, with active cooling, the ability to output in glorious 4K at 60 FPS. Gone are the sliding, wobbly and freakishly small Joy-Cons, which can also be used as a mouse in compatible games. More on that later. You also get 256GB of internal storage, up from the measly 32GB of the original. You get a new kickstand, an additional USB-C port, new speakers with 3D spatial audio, and a new C button. Before we go into the features, let's talk about the design. So let's talk about the screen first of all. 7.9 inches. It's a really nice screen size. 1080p looks really good on a screen this size, and it is vibrant. I do have thoughts about it. I'll talk about it a bit later on in the performance review, but as you can see, it's a really nice screen, and I've been really enjoying using it. As for the sort of weight and ergonomics of the device, it is around 80 grams heavier than the Steam Deck OLED in terms of weight, and you can feel that in the device, and it does feel more weighty, but that also makes it feel more quality, and it is mostly metal, which sort of explains why there's the increase in that. But what I would say about it is, it does feel really comfortable to use, very similar in terms of form factor, obviously, to the original Switch. Honestly, it does feel heavier, but it doesn't feel so heavy that it would be fatiguing to use. It's not going to impact, it hasn't impacted the fatigue of my hands. It hasn't led to any sort of additional cramping or anything like that, and I've been playing it a lot, so it would have done if it was a bit heavier. It does feel like a nice weight, and it does feel on par with the other gaming handhelds out there, especially due to its size. And just the general design of the console, I just really like. I like the blue and red touches, especially when you pull them apart. I really like the sort of pastel style colours, and the matte finish as well is something I wasn't sure of actually when I first had the device in hand, because I thought it's going to get really greasy and really mucky, but it's actually pretty good at that, and it looks, for me anyway, I think it looks like a really smart grown-up device, if that makes sense. It does look like a grown-up version of the Switch, but still with the playful sort of elements that you get with the additional bits of colour. So I think it looks really cool, but let me know what you think in the comments. Now let's talk about the new Joy-Cons, and I really like the magnetic attachment, the way they attach on, even if I have tried to slide them on every now and then just because of the muscle memory. I do like the magnetic, the way it clips on and off, and there's a little plastic thing that comes up here when you press the button, which is just enough force for it to separate, which is I've been really enjoying using these. And I think one of the other things as well about it is, if I really give it a twist, there's just no movement in there, which is a massive improvement on the original. With the sliding ones of the OLED and also the original Switch, after a few years of use, they do get a bit wobbly. So the fact they don't wobble and that they're really secure is a big improvement as well on the last one. So that's another major improvement. Other thing about the Joy-Cons is that they're actually sized for actual human adult hands, which is nice. Thanks Nintendo for that. Yeah, so as an adult playing with the original Switch, the Joy-Cons were just so small. It was just not a very nice experience playing in this mode, but this size is much better for adult hands. Also, the SL, SR sort of bumperish buttons are much nicer as well than the original. Feel a lot more clicky, a lot more tactile. They're not like perfect, they're not like an Xbox or PlayStation controller, but they're much improved. And then you've got the trigger as well, which feels pretty similar, I'm going to say, to the OLED. Maybe a little bit better, a little bit clickier, but very similar. Where the big improvement is actually is in the bumpers. The bumpers There's a lovely click to it, and it's a much better experience than you got with that mushy experience with the original Switch or the Switch OLED. So coming around to the front of the device, then in the design, you can see you've got the B, A, X, Y buttons there. You've got the plus on this side, you've got the home button, and you've got the C button for game chat. On this side, you've got the up, left, right, down buttons, which feel nice. Pretty much the same as on the OLED, and you've obviously got the capture button there with the minus as well on there. On the top, you've got the volume rocker, you've got the power button, you've got the fan outlet here, which will be used. More powerful games, more powerful processor, you need more cooling, so this does get used quite a lot. Additional USB-C port on the top. That's really nice, Nintendo. You've got the 3.5mm audio jack, the game card holder, and the microphone, which I'll go into a bit more detail later on. And on the bottom, you've still got the USB-C slot. You've also got the new kickstand, which I'll go into a bit later, and then you've got the micro SD express card slot, which only supports micro SD express. Now, micro SD card express is a new format for micro SDs, but I think it's great that Nintendo are leading on that. It's going to, but the price of them is going to go down a lot with Nintendo using this as standard, and it just allows for faster transfer times and also better boot times as well when you're running games off the SD card. So nice one, Nintendo. And then also the speakers on the bottom as well, which are much improved on the original. They're quite loud, they're really clear. I really like them. Really good speakers. I also want to talk about the USB-C port on the top in a bit more detail, actually, because you've been there, right? You're playing with the Switch on a table or in bed, and you've got to hook the charger into the bottom, and the wire's always pulling, it's always bending. So the fact that you can have one on the top now, you can plug it in and charge it from the top, it's just such a much better experience. And you can tell Nintendo actually thought about the experience for gamers as well, which is good. I also want to talk about the kickstand, and I know it's going to be small for everyone. It's just a bit of plastic, right? But if you look at the horrible kickstand on the original Switch, which is just a little bit of plastic, and obviously you compare that with the slightly better one on the OLED, but still not very good. This one, the fact that it's adjustable, the fact that it just works, you can have it in that mode, you can have it in the flat mode as well. Oh, it's so much better than what they had before. So that's also massive change that is going to have a real impact on gameplay and just the experience with the console as well. And it's only a small thing, but they've done a really, really good job on that little bit of plastic. Now let's talk about the joysticks on the Joy-Cons, because they feel pretty much the same as what they did on previous consoles, which is a bit of a disappointment. And the bad news doesn't end there, because a teardown recently by iFixit revealed that, as far as they could see, despite Nintendo claiming they've been redesigned from the ground up, it looks like the joysticks are still using the same old potentiometer tech. There's no sign of Hall effect or TMR sensors in the Switch 2. And they also said, unless Nintendo is using some miracle new material on those resistive tracks, or the change in size magically solves it, the best fix is going to come from third-party options. To make it even more frustrating, due to the amount of adhesive used, they're also more difficult to repair than in the original Switch 1, with iFixit giving the Switch 2 an overall repairability rating of just 3 out of 10. Not good. Now, there's a simple reason why Nintendo didn't go with Hall effect, and that's because the new magnetic attachment mechanism could interfere potentially with the magnets in those sensors. But there's no reason, iFixit said, why they couldn't have used TMR sensors, or tunneling magnetoresistance, which is less susceptible to magnetic interference, albeit it probably would have come at an extra cost to the device. Long story short though, I'm afraid joystick drift is still and will continue to be a thing on Switch 2. That is a big disappointment. It's one of the few ways in which the Switch 2 doesn't improve on the original Switch. Now, staying on Joy-Cons, because I want to talk about how you can use this as a mouse on Switch 2. So you get these rollers that are included in the box, and you just attach them like this, and they just clip on like that. And then with the wrist strap on, put the wrist strap like that around there. You can use this, especially as well in the UI, you can just go around and use this as you would a normal mouse, with the click button as the trigger, and then you've got the bumper button as well that you can use as a trigger as well. It's pretty intuitive to use, especially within the UI. People won't have any problems. If you've used a mouse before, you know how to use this. It's pretty intuitive. It's not as good as a mouse, but it's fine. It works pretty well. Now, in games, I only tried it in Cyberpunk 2077, but what I would say is when you're in positions where you're shooting at enemies even far out, using the joysticks on the Joy-Cons as they are is quite difficult to hit your enemy, but using the mouse is a lot easier to get that sort of fine motor control to aim, and I could see that being really interesting, especially when Call of Duty potentially comes to this platform in the future and other shooter games. I think that's something that could be maybe taken advantage of more as more and more games come out. I'm not sure how many people are going to use this on a daily basis. I think it's a cool feature. I think it's nice that Nintendo have done this. I'm not sure if it will catch on. I'm not sure if it's a gimmick right now, but I haven't used it that much. I've used it here and there just to test it out for this review, but it's a good feature. I like that Nintendo has added it, and we'll just have to wait to see which games take advantage of this feature in future. Now let's talk about the new C button. This starts game chat. This allows chats, the ability to play with your friends and also hear them in real time, and with the USB-C camera sold separately, you can also do this with your face too, so you can see each other as you're playing. And in games like Mario Party Jamboree, chat participants can appear in mini games and on the board alongside their chosen character. Now, when I tried the game chat experience out for myself, I was pretty impressed with the experience overall, because despite the mic clearly not being particularly good clarity, it delivered a decent experience even when standing a good few meters away from the console, and for families and friends around sofas, it's more than good enough for that experience.
Oh, I really need to get rid of one of these levels. Oh no!
There's also game share as well via game chat, which you can only do on Switch 2, allowing you to share your game with up to 4 people in the chat group, even if they don't own the game, which is pretty cool. Now, some games only do it locally, so you have to be close to each other, but some games like Fast Fusion allow you to play over the internet with friends, even if you don't own the game, that's a really cool addition. One thing that's a bit weird to me is that as an additional security measure, text message verification is required to set up game chat. I'm not really sure why Nintendo needs that information from me, but hey ho, I guess that's part of it. Now, it's important to say that game chat is free right now until March 31st, 2026, because after that date, a Nintendo Switch Online membership will be required, which is disappointing, but I guess that's what online is all about, right? You probably need a subscription. Everything's a subscription these days, so I'm not surprised, but slightly disappointed. Now, in terms of the UI and how the software works, there's just so many options, especially when you compare it with the Switch 1. It's just a fully fleshed out experience. There's just so many options within the menu. There's everything from adjusting the HDR, data management, controller accessories, controller vibration, mouse sensitivity, calibrating the sticks. You've got the different audio outputs, changing the TV resolution. There's just so many options within this console. It does feel like they've really maxed out what they can do with this platform, and it is a fully fledged platform now. Now, before we go on to the performance section, I just want to talk about the dock that's included. This allows you to plug it into a TV or external display so it can run 4K in compatible games at 60 FPS. Now, it does that, and that's great. It's got active cooling, it's got a little cooler here, you've got the AC adapter, you've got the HDMI out and the new LAN port as well for Ethernet cables, and you've also got 2 USB ports on the side as well. Now, what I would say, compared to the Switch 2, it feels like a genuinely quality product, which is mostly made of metal, and it has a really nice weight to it. The Switch 2 dock, well, let's just say they probably cut some corners with this. I mean, the flex in this plastic, I mean, I'm worried I'm going to break it just doing this. Look at the flex in that. The plastic is quite cheap. I mean, it feels quite cheap to hold. It definitely feels like they cut a few corners of this one to keep the price down. Obviously, it delivers the performance, right? There's no problem with that. But if you step on this, it's gonna break. So just be aware of that, especially compared to the old dock. It was a lot more sturdy. It felt like the plastic was a lot more stronger. With this dock, just be careful that you don't leave it with any children lying around, because yeah, that will break. So now on to performance, and we've already streamed Cyberpunk 2077 and done a specific video on the performance of that game on this console, so go and check that out if you want specifics on that game. But generally, as you would expect from a Nintendo console, performance has been pretty great out of the box. Games like Mario Kart World, Cyberpunk, and Tears of the Kingdom, the Switch 2 edition, look sharp, bright, and really very colourful. It really is in a different league compared to its predecessor, and in my opinion, it clearly rivals more PC-like handheld gaming devices like the Steam Deck or the Lenovo Legion Go. Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild ran fine-ish on the original Switch on the OLED, but on the Switch 2, I'd go as far as to say it's a transformative experience, with the 60 FPS unfortunately capped at that, in both handheld and docked, feeling superb, as well as the 4K visuals when hooked up to a TV. If you loved these games half as much as I did, you need to experience them on this console. Honestly, they're amazing to play on this console. Similarly, Mario Kart World being a launch title, you'd obviously expect it to run well, and it does. It looks super sharp, particularly in 4K, with super vibrant colours and flawless smooth performance. And then there's third-party games. I mean, the fact that Cyberpunk 2077 can run pretty well on this console is a monumental step into the unknown for Nintendo, but it's exciting for all of us because it opens up support for potentially huge AAA gaming franchises to launch on this console when historically Nintendo couldn't or wouldn't support them. From Software has already confirmed Elden Ring is coming to Switch 2 in 2025. Then there's the Switch 2 exclusive from them. Yes, a Switch 2 exclusive from Software. What? Called the Dustbloods, which is coming in 2026. And don't forget, Microsoft has already committed back in 2023 to delivering Call of Duty on Nintendo platforms. And although the recent Black Ops 7 reveal failed to name-check Switch 2, a source told Eurogamer recently that the team is committed to bringing the Call of Duty series to Nintendo. Come on then, Microsoft, what are you waiting for? Hurry up. And I think that's what Nintendo's going for here. It's bold and certainly a change in direction from what is a very traditional company, but the increased performance from this console means this isn't what the Switch was. It's not a value console in its own little category and just supported Nintendo games and a few third-party ones. No, this is a console that is firmly competing against the Steam Deck, the new ROG Ally Xbox, and whenever PlayStation gets the move on, it'll be a competitor for theirs too. But what Nintendo has over all of those competitors is Nintendo games. And that offering, when paired with third-party AAA titles that could run at a similar performance level, no one else can match that. And that'll make things very, very interesting, at least in the next few years for handheld gaming. Now let's talk about the screen. This LCD might only be LCD, but it is a huge step up from its predecessor, although it does have its limitations. First off, it's HDR compatible, sure, but the screen can only generate 450 nits of peak brightness, which just isn't really enough for a full, vibrant HDR handheld experience. I mean, it's okay for me, it's probably okay for you, it's probably okay for anyone, but avid HDR fans will say, it's not true HDR. What I will say though is the HDR support is much better when docked, but obviously it depends what TV you have. I'll also say the screen is pretty reflective, more so than the original Switch, which makes playing with it on public transport or outside just a little bit more tricky than it was. And then there's the big one. Why isn't it OLED? I mean, I think it's pretty obvious why there's no OLED, and that's price. This console is already near as makes no difference, £400. If they would have gone with an OLED, what are we talking? £450, £475? It's an expensive console as it is, particularly by Nintendo standards, with the original Switch being the value gaming console, remember, at just $279.99. The Switch 2 is just not in that category anymore, and an OLED screen at launch may have made this console even more out of reach. I mean, don't get me wrong, I would have loved an OLED screen, I'm with you, but in this economy, I can see why they haven't yet, and the majority of people probably won't appreciate OLED anyway. Sorry to say, but it is the truth. Now, battery life is also pretty much as you'd expect. Nintendo says the Switch 2 will last between 2 and 6.5 hours, depending on the software, and honestly, this was pretty spot on, with Cyberpunk 2077 running for a good 2 hours and 20 minutes, and Mario Kart World well into 3 hours. This is obviously worse than Switch 1, but guys, that's the price we'll have to pay for enhanced visuals, higher frames, and a bigger, brighter screen. It's also on par, I would say, battery life, if not slightly better than some of the handhelds in the same price category. So, the big question, should you buy one? Now, I'll answer that with another question. Is the Switch 2 significantly better than the original Switch in every possible conceivable way? Yeah. It's still a Switch, but now with legendary tier gear, a maxed out skill tree, and ready to face elite bosses. Nintendo hasn't tried anything wild, revolutionary, or out of the ordinary with the Switch 2, but can we really criticize them for that? Now, Nintendo have got a history of taking risks that haven't worked. I mean, the Wii U's gimmicky gamepad, the Virtual Boy's eye-straining 3D graphics, and controversially, maybe, The GameCube's proprietary mini DVDs, well, they just didn't work, did they? Right now, if there are games you want to play on Switch 2, Mario Kart World, Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, or even Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which looks great with updated visuals and higher frame rates, buying this console will allow you to experience these games like never before. And look, if you just play Nintendo games traditionally and you want to have this and experience third-party games like Cyberpunk, Split Fiction, Hitman World of Assassination, Civ 7, Survival Kids, Yakuza 0, Street Fighter 6, alongside the Nintendo games you know and love, and with the majority of Switch 1 games also being backwards compatible, well, now you can. And there's probably more to come too. But if there's no games you feel compelled to play on Switch 2, you probably don't need one right now. But considering its performance potential and what it could deliver in future, not just with Nintendo titles, but third-party ones too, the Switch 2 could be an essential purchase in the months and years to come. Is it essential right now though? That's a question only you can answer, but there's no denying the Switch 2 is a huge improvement over the original Switch, and it's better in every way. I give the Nintendo Switch 2 a 4 out of 5 here on All Out Gaming. Let me know in the comments, do you think this is a 5 out of 5 console? Let me know what you think. If you disagree with me, if you think it's worse than that, let me know in the comments as well. I'd love to hear from you and I'll try and answer as many as I can. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like and get subscribed. We've got loads more gaming content coming up. Software, hardware, bit of everything, honestly. So get subscribed so you don't miss it. That's all from me. We'll see you in the next one.